Welcome to the game of life. Your mission objective? Conquer speaking and social anxiety in just under 2 minutes. I'm not flipping you off. This is 2, not this, but take it how you see it. With this proven and scientific technique. What if I told you that this level of the social game has always been known to be max difficulty? I'm talking level 100 in terms of really difficult to overcome. But actually, the truth is that this level of the game is more like a level 5 quest.
Stop the cap.
But only if you know how to beat it. And if you think I'm absolutely crazy right now, then this video is exactly for you. If you're anything like me, social situations have terrified you for pretty much as long as you can remember. And every time you even think about having to be social, whether that's at a party, at a work meeting, on a date with the love of your damn life, you have a so-called panic attack go on inside of you, maybe even a real one if you're that unlucky. And that's just damn terrifying. But even if you aren't having full-blown meltdowns, many people experience very uncomfortable feelings, such as a dreaded and constant feeling of uneasiness and internal stress. The pressure makes your hands tighten up. You start to sweat a little bit. Your heart starts pounding inside your chest. Your body stiffens. You feel constantly under pressure and anxious, worrying about what you'll say, how you'll say it. Maybe you'll say the wrong thing and mess everything up, which paradoxically does usually end up in you making a fool of yourself in a social situation because you're so damn tense all the time and because you are simply trying too hard. Sound relatable? It's just a shit feeling overall, and I personally still battle with this from time to time, so you are not alone. That was, however, until I discovered this one simple trick that I'm going to share with you today, totally for free, that has changed the course of my social life forever. It really is a simple yet profound solution. No tactics, no tricks, and no gimmicks are going to be required of you. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. My name is Niall Higgins, and I went from playing video games to playing the beautiful game of life. But most importantly, building incredible, close, and lifelong relationships with the people that I truly care about. And that makes all the difference. If I could do it, you could sure as hell do it too. But before we jump into the answer, I'd like to share a little story with you. To keep it as short and sweet as possible, after the COVID lockdown, I had pretty much lost all of my social skills. And I'm sure many of you can relate to this story. Due to being isolated for months on end, I literally went from being a social savage who partied all the time with his friends, who went out and had fun, who performed on stages, who gave speeches all around the world, to being an awkward, shy, just weird adult, as though I was right back to my days struggling with Tourette's when I was a weird, awkward kid with zero social skills. It was terrible. Now, to try and fix this and regain the confidence that I felt I had lost, I studied every book that you could possibly imagine. I watched videos on gurus, I took courses, read everything I could get my hands on. Articles, seminars, documentaries, bibliographies, you name it, right? I searched and searched like crazy, looking for the solution to finally overcome this social anxiety I was feeling. And even though, yes, a lot of this knowledge was useful and is currently useful at the level that I am at now in terms of my social skills, but the truth is, it really wasn't what I needed at that stage. And it's probably not what you need right now either. Because you see, I needed a grassroots, ground level, foundational solution. Because the obvious truth was that using technique, knowing what to say, having a game plan was utterly useless. When I felt like a nervous wreck anytime anybody wanted to have a simple conversation with me, it just didn't work. And it wasn't until I picked up 2 incredibly powerful and effective books, one being The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and the other being The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida, that things finally started to change for me. What I realized, and what you will realize after watching this video very quickly, is that having great conversations and great relationships has literally nothing to do with knowing the right things to say, or being able to be constantly witty, to be constantly funny, and constantly on top of your game all the damn time. It's exhausting. It had literally nothing, literally zilch, to do with the mind and all the weird and annoying games it plays. I almost said wonderful, but it's bullshit because the mind never shuts the hell up. And I'm sure you can relate to that. Because I realized that my mind was my biggest enemy. And it is yours as well. What finally cured me had everything to do with focusing less on what to say and how to say it, and so much more on how to allow and accept the current social moment that I found myself in. For the Buddhist monks or the Tibetan tribes who somehow have an internet connection and are watching this right now, you'll relate to this idea of non-attachment or allowance or acceptance of the present moment as it is. Because as the first book, The Power of Now, showed me, when you are stuck in your head, when you are not fully engaged in the present moment, you simply cannot flow, you cannot weave, you cannot be spontaneous in a conversation. And that, my friend, is exactly the trick. That is the secret to real, true, deep connections, as well as social relaxation, for that matter of fact. It is simply being intensely present in the current moment and fully allowing yourself to give up control of your mind so that you can spontaneously flow and enjoy the natural progression of a conversation. Sounds simple, but it is so profound once you finally understand this truth the same way that I did. And I repeat, it is not being stuck in your head, stuck in the worry and the tenseness and the pressure of what will I say? What if it sounds stupid? What if I speak too much? What if I'm not speaking enough, right? You've had all of these crazy mind battles going on inside of yourself many times before. But you got to remember, friend, that this is not a rap battle, right? This is not a battle of the wits. You are not B Rabbit, or for the younger people, you're not Eminem, right? Never gonna give you up. Trying to win a rap battle. You are just trying to enjoy yourself and be relaxed and easeful and yourself in social interactions. That's all you want. It's your mind that gets in your way every single time. And without disabling this mind just for a second, you will never, I repeat, never get rid of the social anxiety that you feel. So we now know that presence is one of the biggest key factors in being able to relax and overcome our social anxiety. There is, however, a second piece to this puzzle. And when you combine these two aspects, one of presence and the second thing that I'm about to discuss, you become the social avatar, right? They work in relation to each other for you to be able to fully relax both in mind and in body. And the reason I say this is because even though, yes, once I started to be more present in social interactions, once I started learning how to calm my mind, things got a lot better for me. I did start to see initial success by quote unquote living in the present moment. But the thing is, emotions are incredibly powerful things, right? They may not be tangible and real, but they are felt. And so oftentimes when I was in a social situation where my mind was quite calm at first initially, and I felt at peace and in the present moment, something might just trigger me to feel a certain anxiety. Maybe all of a sudden my heart started pounding out of nowhere, my body tensed again, and no matter how much being in the present moment I was trying to be in or do, I just felt super anxious again. And I could not control my body. And because my body was in this unnatural, unrelaxed state, I would naturally find myself withdrawing back into the mind, going back into panic mode, thinking, which just totally undid all of my progress. And this sucked balls, right? It sucked. That was only until I started to think to myself, maybe my problem isn't always a mental one. And maybe it has more to do with physiology, with my body. To control your mind, you first need to control your body or your physiology. This seems blatantly simple. The sad truth is that most people try to fight their minds, you guessed it, with their minds. Tell me something honestly. How often have you tried to pep talk yourself into being confident in a social interaction? Because I've been there, right? I've sat in my car going, you got this, bro. You're confident. You look nice. You can do this. You're a social savage, using all these affirmations and cuck. You use all of this stuff, but no matter what happens, you get into that interaction and it's just your body just tenses up again. And you're like, what the flip, bro? Like I literally just spoke myself into believing it, and now I feel tense again. What gives? Or how many times have you judged yourself for not being witty, for not being funny enough? And you thought that by beating yourself up mentally, you'd finally learn your lesson. You'd finally become the social savage that you are. If only you would just shut the hell up and believe in yourself and, you get angry with yourself. But that does bugger all as well, doesn't it? How often have these things worked for you? I'm willing to guess pretty much never. Because using the very tool to fix the tool itself is a pointless endeavor. It's literally like hiring a private investigator to investigate a murder when at the end of the court case, big shocker, the private investigator was the murderer all along. I think there was a TV show recently that talked about this, but you get my point, right? It just would be an endless circle of confusion and not getting anywhere, which is not what you want. So then the question becomes, how do we fight the mind or calm the mind without using the mind? If you've been paying attention up to this point, you'll know that the answer is to use the body, man. It's to use the body and to control the body or to influence the body's physiological state. The best thing that we currently have, and science, Buddhist monks, mindfulness practitioners, everybody will back me up on this, is the simple power of conscious breathing. In the second book that I mentioned, The Way of the Superior Man, David Deida talks about how deep and conscious breathing practices can help a man literally connect with his innermost self, access deeper levels of awareness, and essentially tap into his masculine core, his king-like essence. Because if you think about a king, right, or what did a king do back when he was ruling all these kingdoms? You think he was shallow breathing? Do you think he was like this little tight stomach dude? Or do you think he had this big rounded full belly? Breathing in like a king. It's pretty obvious what the answer is, isn't it? And by practicing breathing consciously, you too can ground yourself in the present moment, calm your mind, and ultimately ease and overcome your social anxiety. If you've had literally any experience with any form of breathing meditation, this is exactly how people practice it. By focusing totally on your breathing, you learn to ground yourself in the present moment, quiet your mind, and find a stillness and peace inside of you that allows all your anxieties and worries to, even temporarily, fade away. But here's the thing that most people simply don't understand, and that is, why can't we do this in our everyday lives as well? Instead of doing this for 15, 20 minutes at a time, why not incorporate this practice into everyday situations, and especially social situations that cause you anxiety? The truth is, you absolutely can. You do not have to sit down on a rug and balance 5 rocks on your head in order to pull off a successful meditation. You can meditate in your everyday life. And this is what we are going to do through breathing in order to overcome our social anxiety. Because when you focus only on your breathing in social situations, and by using a specific technique that we'll discuss in a moment, you essentially force your parasympathetic nervous system to kick into gear, which is the system that brings about relaxation, calmness, and peace. It subconsciously tells your mind to calm down and relax because this present moment is totally safe and we are okay. Which sounds literally like the opposite to social anxiety, which tells you that you are in danger, that people are judging you, that you are not okay. We want the opposite of that state. If you're sitting there thinking that this solution is too stupid and too simple to be true, because it definitely sounds like that. I did warn you, right? I urge you to think about the way you usually breathe in social situations. What is your breathing like when you are in a very busy, crowded social situation? For the majority of us, we are willing to admit that our breathing is like, it's very shallow. We are tense. Our stomach is tight, right? Especially for the guys watching this video, you'll know that when you are walking past a group of beautiful girls, what's the first instinct you have? Suck in the dad gut, right? Suck it in and walk around like you are this Greek Adonis, right? But that, paradoxically, only serves to make you more tense, more nervous. This is why you are probably nervous around the opposite sex, because you're breathing like a little wimp. You're breathing in tightly. Whereas, as I mentioned, the king, he breathes deeply. He doesn't give a shit about people seeing his beer boop, right? His massive belly. He embraces it and he breathes. And paradoxically, again, because all of this is paradoxical, he feels more calm and relaxed, which ultimately carries him across as proud, as confident, as sure of himself. And funny enough, the breathing solution doesn't just have a physiological effect. If you really think about it, secondly, when you are focusing simply on your breathing, what is your mind doing? Same thing it's doing right now listening to me. It's doing nothing because you are focusing on a physical aspect of your experience, of your body. Your mind goes quiet because you are focusing on the breath. And this is the perfect state to be in when in a conversation. Because one, when you are quiet and silent, you are usually listening to the other person, right? And you think that focusing on your breathing will take away your attention from them, but it really doesn't. Try this for yourself. Like, don't even take my word for it. When you focus on your breathing, you can still very much listen to the words of another human being. And even better than that, you can fully comprehend and extract and take in what that other person is saying, which ultimately makes that person feel heard, understood, and as a nice positive result, more bonded to you. Because the sad truth of life is that most people are NPCs, right? Most conversations feel mechanical and just up in the air and as though nobody's listening to you, right? I'm sure you've experienced this in life. But when you give the gift of your full attention to another human being, by shutting your stupid mind up and by focusing on calming down your physiology by breathing, you give them the gift of your presence, which makes them like you and which helps foster a deeper and more intimate connection with that other human being. It's a beautiful thing. Once you are focused fully on your breathing and listening to the other human being and your mind is silent, when the conversation naturally lulls, when it's naturally silent for a moment, your mind won't be racing. You won't say something that's obviously trying to fill the silence, that's awkward and forced and stressed. You will spontaneously rise to the occasion. Your mind, as much as we've beaten it up in this video, right, is an incredible tool. And it can work even better when it's allowed to work spontaneously. You'll find that in these social situations, your mind will just naturally churn something up. Just like that, right? It'll come up with the right thing to say. It'll say something that is usually a lot more honest and less curated and crafted. And even though, yes, you may end up saying something that's a little bit off-center or a little bit too honest, this is what draws people to other people. It's being honest. It's being authentic in your conversations. It's being natural and spontaneous in the moment. It's the willingness to not be damn perfect all the damn time. It's the willingness to be yourself. And this can only happen when your mind is quiet and you allow it just to be itself. The same way you allow yourself to just naturally flow and exist in a social interaction. And if that doesn't happen and the silence just remains, that's even better. Because instead of running to fill the silence, as you probably always do, the same way I always do, you'll be comfortable with the silence. You'll focus on your breathing. And again, you'll allow the silence to take place, which paradoxically, which is the key word of this video, makes you appear more confident. It makes you appear less worried about the dying of this conversation. And usually the other person on the other end will start worrying and saying, oh, what do I got to say? What do I got to say? And then they'll say something to fill it up. And that subconsciously communicates that you are the more confident person in the interaction. Either way, it's a win-win situation. And now for all the technical weirdos out there that want the step-by-step solution to this problem. I know you'll be shouting at me, but Niall, how do I breathe? What's the correct timing? What's the correct, all this nonsense, right? I'll give you a strategy because I know that you guys like strategies, but try not to overthink this, right? If you just simply breathe deeply and naturally during a conversation, I mean, it can be as simple as, if we were talking right now, you wouldn't think that was weird. You'd think, wow, this guy's so calm and he's so relaxed and he's so easeful with himself. Just breathe. Just naturally breathe in slowly. The one tip I will give you is to breathe like literally deep into your balls, right? If you're a dude, if you're a girl, just breathe as deeply as you can. You want that full breath. And then just as slowly as possible and as most easy and relaxed as possible, just let it out. That's really all you need. Deep conscious breathing. But there is a nice little technique that we got from our boy Andrew Huberman called the physiological sigh, which can be profoundly useful when you are about to enter a social interaction, because this kind of technique looks a bit more forced and more obvious. But the benefit of this technique is that it forces extra air into your lungs. Again, I'm not a scientist here, so I'm probably butchering this explanation, but simply it allows more air into your lungs so that your parasympathetic nervous system gets stimulated a little bit quicker. It'll literally give you a relaxing effect for like half an hour to an hour after you've done this breathing exercise. So it's a nice thing to do before embarking on a social interaction, right? And this is how you do it. You simply breathe in deeply. And when you're at the very top of how much you can breathe, you force yourself to take one last little spike of air. And then you let it out. And then you repeat the cycle. What this does is actually simulates the crying mechanism, right? You'll know that if you've ever had an ugly cry in your life, which is most of us, right? This is how you cry. You go, right? You're taking in extra air. You're forcing in that little spike of air. So you're kind of tricking your body into thinking that you're having an ugly cry, But how do you usually feel after having an ugly cry? You feel totally relaxed. You feel totally at ease and feels like a weight's been lifted off your shoulders. So this is the effect that you'd get if you use the physiological side right before going into a social interaction. So here's my step-by-step strategy for you guys today. Do the physiological side before entering a conversation, and during the conversation, just bring your mind back. Every time it fucks off and wanders around, bring it back. Bring it back to your breathing, nice and slowly, nice and consciously, and you'll be absolutely shocked as to how much more natural your conversations start becoming. It really is that simple, guys. I hate to tell you, and I wish I had more of an advanced answer, but just be present, just breathe, just allow and relax, and don't beat yourself up. This process takes time to get used to. Just keep practicing, just keep trusting yourself, just keep letting go. And eventually, you will find yourself coming to experience a lot more peace, a lot more tranquility, and a lot more enjoyment out of the social situations that you find yourself in. Because the truth is, life is socializing. Life is relationships. And it's an immensely beautiful part of being alive and being a human being is your relationships. So don't let them become the biggest anxiety in your life, because they truly can be the biggest pleasure, but only if you are willing to let them be. The key is to simply relax, breathe, and enjoy the moment, my friend. You don't know how many more of them you're going to get. Because coming back to the branding of this channel, you only get one game of life, so you may as well play it the damn best way you possibly can. If you found any value whatsoever in this video today, please consider sharing it with a friend who might need this message. If you'd like my personal one-on-one help with your relationships, your social skills, or even your presentations, you can simply find my contact details in the link in the description. Watch the next video where I discuss my profoundly simple and powerful framework that allows me to be even more present and even more connected to my social situations. And if all else fails, ask yourself, if life was a game, how would I play?